The house smelled like cinnamon and butter and something older like memory if memory had a scent. I had been in the kitchen since just after sunrise, chopping onions with cold hands and peeling apples one by one. The turkey was in the oven by 10. By noon, the stuffing was cooling on the counter and the apple pie was resting on the windowsill the way Grandma used to do back when the house still felt full. It was Christmas Day, and I was trying again to make it feel like it used to. My name's Claire. I'm 28, a UX designer at a studio in Seattle called Blue Fern, but I've been back in Tacoma for 3 years now. Moved home when my mom was about to lose the house. It was supposed to be temporary. Funny how temporary turns into invisible when you're living with someone who forgets you pay the bills. Mom Deborah is in her 60s. She hasn't worked since the hardware store laid her off in 2019, and she hasn't said thank you since around then either. Still, I cooked. I cleaned. I decorated the table with the old red napkins and the chipped ceramic reindeer we always put out even though one antler is broken. I wanted it to feel like Christmas. Not because I believed in miracles anymore, but because I believed in trying. My sister Lacey arrived an hour late with wet hair and no apology. She's 24, still lives here too kind of. Comes and goes. Mom appeared around 4 dressed in her gray sweater with the pearl buttons phone in hand, scrolling through someone else's life. No one said much while we ate. The only sound was the fork scraping her plate and the occasional clink of ice against glass. I poured the wine. I offered second helpings. I lit the candles. I kept waiting for the moment where something would feel warm, like family. And then, just as she was slicing into the turkey hand still on the knife, my mother looked up and said, "Claire, you need to move out." She said it like she was commenting on the weather. Like it wasn't Christmas. Like I hadn't just basted her bird and vacuumed the rugs and paid her mortgage again this month. I didn't answer right away. I think I blinked. Twice. Lacey glanced at me, her fork pausing midair. And for a second, I thought maybe I'd misheard. But no. My mother didn't repeat herself. She didn't need to. She just looked down again, took another bite, and kept chewing. Like that was that. And maybe it was. But here's the part I still don't understand even now. Why say it then? Why say it that way? What had I done that made my presence less welcome than silence? I didn't say anything. Not then. Instead, I set my fork down slowly the way you do when something inside you stops moving but you're not sure what yet. I looked at the table I had set the turkey I had roasted the pie cooling behind us. The quilted placemats my grandmother made. All of it felt suddenly out of place, like decorations for a party I was no longer invited to. Mom didn't look up again. She chewed. She reached for her wine. She tapped her thumb against her phone, lighting it up to check a message that couldn't have been more important than what she'd just done. Lacey cleared her throat. Quiet. She always hated being the middle. She started, then gave up and went back to cutting her food. I finally spoke, voice low but steady. "Really?" I said. "You need me to move out." She nodded, almost like she hadn't heard the edge in my voice. Then she shrugged and said, "It's time I had my space back." Her space. The house I saved. The home I paid for every month, every bill, every grocery run, every oil change and air filter and broken garbage disposal. The space she hadn't been able to keep when I moved back. 3 years ago, she'd been on the brink bills unopened on the kitchen table, water heater leaking power shut off twice. I came home thinking I could help, and I did. Quietly. Fully. I never asked her to split the mortgage. Never asked her to thank me. Never even corrected her when she told neighbors she was helping me get back on my feet. But now, what she wanted the space back. Like I was a piece of clutter she'd been meaning to get rid of. I looked at her. Then really looked. Her hair was shorter than usual, her lipstick too dark. Her eyes never met mine. It wasn't anger I felt, not yet. It was something colder, recognition. She wasn't saying this out of nowhere. She'd been thinking it, sitting with it, maybe even rehearsing it. And the fact that she chose now Christmas dinner when I had done everything I could to make the house feel warm again, that said more than I think she meant it to. She didn't care how it landed. She just wanted it said. So I nodded. I didn't protest, Didn't cry, didn't ask when or why or how soon. I just folded my napkin, placed it on the plate, and stood up. Behind me, the candles flickered a little. No one reached out. No one followed. I walked to my room and shut the door, but I couldn't stop hearing it, her voice, flat final. You need to move out, and the echo behind it louder than anything she'd said. You don't belong here. I sat on the edge of the bed for a long time that night. Didn't pack, didn't cry, just sat. Hands folded in my lap like I was waiting for something, some knock on the door maybe. A voice asking if I was okay. Even just footsteps coming down the hall. But the only sound was the distant hum of the dishwasher and the faint clink of glass from the kitchen like someone poured another drink. I stared at the bookshelf across from me. 3 years of quiet labor, stacked up utility bills, cookbooks, a candle I bought for the guest bathroom and never lit. On the dresser, folded carefully, was the one thing I knew I'd take: the quilt. My grandmother made it the year I turned 15. It was a patchwork of old family fabrics, my dad's flannel shirt scraps from Mom's apron, even a square of Lacey's baby blanket. She said it was a keeper of warmth. I hadn't slept under it in months, too afraid it would start to smell like a house that had stopped feeling like home. I stood and started gathering what I needed, slowly. Not with panic, not with grief. Just motion. A small duffel bag, my laptop, chargers, the quilt, a framed photo of my dad taken the last Christmas we had together. I left the rest. Clothes in drawers, shoes by the door. The mug I always used in the morning with the tiny chip on the rim. Left it all. I didn't know where I'd go yet, but I knew I couldn't stay. And that was the strangest part, how easy it felt to leave. Not because it didn't hurt, but because the weight of staying had finally become heavier than the weight of the unknown. I slept in jeans that night, on top of the covers, with my coat nearby and my bag zipped, just in case I changed my mind by morning. But I didn't. The next day, while the house was still quiet, Mom asleep, blinds drawn, I walked out the front door and down the icy steps. No note, no explanation, no performance. Just the quietest goodbye I could give. I caught a bus across town to Lena's place, my friend from work, the one with too many throw pillows and a cat named Oliver who hates everyone. She let me in without asking why. I sank into her couch quilt in my lap coat still on and stared at the ceiling like it might offer some clue for how I got here. Not physically, emotionally. How do you go from savior to stranger without anyone noticing? 3 days passed. No calls, no texts, no knock on the door. I kept my phone face down most of the time. Not because I didn't want to hear from her, but because I knew she wouldn't reach out. And that silence was heavier than I expected. Lena made space for me in her guest room, though I insisted the couch was fine. I wasn't planning to stay long, just long enough to breathe without apologizing for it. Then one morning, while I was pouring coffee into a chipped mug that said, "World's okayest human," my phone buzzed. A message. From Lacey. "You won't believe what Mom's been telling people." That was all it said. I called her immediately. She picked up on the first ring, whispering like she didn't want Mom to hear. "She's telling everyone you screamed at her," Lacey said. "That you had some kind of breakdown at dinner and stormed out slamming doors. She says you abandoned her on Christmas." I didn't speak. I just listened. "She's already talked to Aunt Janice, Uncle Rob, a few cousins. They think she's heartbroken. Like you left her without warning after everything she's done for you." There was that line again. After everything she's done for you. As if keeping me alive 2 decades ago was a debt I was still meant to repay. Lacey sighed. "Claire, I know what happened. I was there. I just thought you should know what's going around." "Thanks," I said softly. "Really?" We hung up. I stood in Lena's kitchen for a long time, the mug going cold in my hands. It wasn't the lie that hurt most. It was how easily people believed it. By that evening, I'd been removed from the family group chat. A cousin unfriended me on Facebook. One of Mom's church friends posted something vague about kids these days having no loyalty. I considered doing nothing, staying silent, rising above. But silence was what she counted on. So I did something else. I sat down, opened my laptop, and wrote. Not a rant, Not a revenge piece. Just the truth. I moved back in 3 years ago to help my mom keep the house. I paid the bills, the mortgage, and did what I could to make things stable again. On Christmas, I made dinner. I set the table. I lit the candles. And after the turkey was served, she looked at me and told me it was time I moved out. I didn't yell. I didn't slam anything. I just left. Because it was clear I wasn't welcome anymore. I'm not posting this for pity. I'm posting this because the version of me she's sharing isn't real. I hit publish. Then I closed the laptop and walked away. Didn't check the comments. Didn't refresh the screen. Just sat by the window quilt in my lap watching the clouds roll in over the city. The truth was out there now. And whether anyone believed it? Well, that part I didn't control. But what happens when the lie is more convenient than the truth? I didn't check my phone that night. I made a cup of tea, sat on the floor with Oliver the cat curled against my leg, and let the quiet settle like dust in the corners of the room. There was a strange kind of peace in letting go of control. By morning, I woke to more notifications than I'd seen in months. Texts, missed calls, emails, a few messages from people I hadn't spoken to since high school. I almost didn't open any of them. But curiosity is a persistent thing. The first message I read was from Aunt Lisa. She'd always been the most reasonable of the extended bunch, the one who sent cards at odd times, and once brought me a necklace with a tiny compass on it just in case you need help finding your way. Her message said I had no idea. I'm so sorry for believing otherwise. Your post, it changed how I see everything. I sat with that sentence for a long time. Then came a DM from my cousin Caleb. We hadn't spoken in years, but he wrote, "Honestly, we always wondered why your mom treated you the way she did. It just never made sense. It was validating. And somehow it hurt. Because if they saw it, if even part of them knew something was wrong, why hadn't anyone asked sooner? Why hadn't anyone reached out when I was still in that house paying those bills, setting that table alone?" Not everyone responded. Some people stayed quiet. Others, I think, unfollowed me out of guilt or discomfort. A few left neutral face emojis under my post, like they weren't sure what to feel. And then there were the ones who doubled down. A message from Mom came in around noon. Not a call, just a wall of text. "I can't believe you'd humiliate me like this. You twisted everything. You're always the victim, Claire. You always have been. No apology, no acknowledgement. Just control reasserting itself." I didn't reply. I didn't even screenshot it for proof. I just stared at her words until the screen dimmed, then flipped the phone face down again. That was the thing no one tells you about finally speaking the truth, even when people believe you the damage is already done. You don't get the old version of your life back. You don't get the family photo back on the hallway wall. You just learn to live without it, and slowly you start deciding what to hang in its place. It happened on a Thursday. Gray skylight drizzle, the kind of cold that settles into your sleeves no matter how tightly you wrap your coat. I had just come back from the grocery store bag of Lemon's coffee filters and a loaf of sourdough I didn't need but wanted. I was halfway up the stairs to Lena's apartment when I saw her, my mother, standing at the top landing holding a pie in a plastic bakery box, the kind with the crimped edges and barcode still stuck to the bottom. Apple, of course. She smiled like we were bumping into each other at the post office. "Hi, Claire," she said as if it had been days, not weeks. I didn't move, just stood still, rein in my hair bag in one hand, key in the other. She looked smaller than I remembered, or maybe I was seeing her clearly for the first time. "I brought pie," she said, lifting it a little like that, explained everything. I walked the last few steps, unlocked the door, but didn't open it fully. Just stepped outside and stood in the hallway. She didn't ask to come in. Instead, she started talking. "I miss you," she said. "Things haven't been the same without you. Maybe we could have dinner sometime. Talk things through." I looked at her, then really looked. No tears, no apology. Just a mother trying to reset the board without acknowledging the last move. So I asked, simple as I could, "Are you here to apologize?" She blinked, then she said, like it was the most reasonable thing in the world, "I don't think I need to. I think we both made mistakes. That was her answer. Her version of peace. Her need to keep the story mutual equal safe. I nodded once. Not in agreement, but in understanding. I wish you well, I said. Then I stepped back inside and closed the door. Didn't slam it, didn't raise my voice, just closed it. Because there was nothing else left to say. And more than that, I wasn't angry anymore. I was just done. Life didn't change overnight. But it shifted, little by little. I found a small studio apartment a few weeks after the door closed, just outside the city, tucked above a bookstore that always smelled like paper and peppermint. The space was old but clean. Wood floors, a crooked window that caught the afternoon sun, walls that didn't echo with someone else's disappointment. I bought a couch secondhand from a woman named Ruth who insisted on giving me a throw blanket just because. I set up a tiny table by the window, planted a pothos in an old ceramic bowl, and let it take its time finding the light. I drank my coffee slowly, without earbuds, without whispers through the wall, and for the first time in years I didn't feel like I had to explain why I was tired or quiet, or not in the mood to talk. Silence no longer felt like punishment, it felt like peace. Lena helped me move in. Oliver the cat came by once, hissed at the baseboard, and left. That felt right too. Then one afternoon, my phone buzzed. Lacey. She asked if I had time for coffee. We met at a small cafe downtown, the kind with chalkboard menus and mismatched chairs. She looked tired, older somehow. Not in years, but in weight. After some small talk, she finally said, "Things got worse after you left." I didn't ask for details. She gave them anyway. The mortgage was slipping behind. The power had been shut off once. Mom blamed the electric company, blamed the economy, blamed me. "She's spiraling," Lacey said. "But I guess you knew that." I nodded. Then she looked straight at me. "You did the right thing by leaving," she said. "You should have done it sooner. I didn't know how much I needed to hear that until I did." We sat in silence for a bit, shared a lemon bar, talked about nothing. Before we left, she added, "I'm thinking of leaving too. Just need to figure out how." I reached for her hand and gave it a quiet squeeze. "I can't pay your way," I said, "but I won't let you drown." And for the first time in a long time, we walked out of a place side by side. It's been a few months now. The pothos is still growing. The quilt stays folded at the foot of the bed, its corners soft from years of use. I haven't washed it since I left. I don't think I will. It still smells like something I can't name but want to keep. I see Lacey sometimes. We don't talk much about home, but we talk. She sends me photos of apartments she's thinking about. Tiny kitchens, brick walls. One had yellow curtains and a view of nothing but. She smiled when she showed it to me. That was enough. I started baking again. Not often, just when it feels right. Apple pie once. Not for anyone, just to see if I remembered how. It burned a little around the edges. Still tasted like something worth keeping. I haven't taken down the post. People stopped talking about it weeks ago, but I leave it up not for them, for me. Because there's a difference between moving on and pretending it never happened. Mom hasn't reached out again. I don't expect her to. Sometimes I think about that pie she brought to my door, still in the box, still cold. I never opened it. Some things don't need to be tasted to be understood, and some goodbyes don't need to be loud to last. She didn't teach me how to stay. She taught me how to leave with grace.